Okay, so I have a 35.5 inch long piece of vinyl by 16 inches. And what I've done is I've marked the exact halfway points with a ruler, and I have another small measuring device here that's supposed to be for sewing, I believe. I'm still pretty new to this stuff, but this is basically what I'm using to make my diamond shape. Once I have that down, I measure out. I'm doing 3 inch by 2 inch diamonds. And so now that I've got everything marked out for that size, I'm just going to go ahead and shape it and mark it to where it's supposed to be. And when I get the initial diamond done, then I'll be able to go ahead and use it as a template to make all the other ones. And it'll be centered. One of the things I learned when I was attempting my first diamond stitch is I didn't center it perfectly, so it had a little bit of walk to it. I'm just using chalk to mark it. Works okay. It's not the best. I've heard that they have some other types of pencils that are specifically made for this that work a little better. Let's see what this looks like. So there's the first diamond, and then to try to go ahead and use it, like I said, as a cheat sheet, I'm just going to take this long piece, this long ruler, line it up. It'd be better if you flip it around because you can actually measure the exact distance that any one of them are. So see that it's 2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and mark. Usually takes a couple scores of this. And it doesn't have to show up great, just so long as you can see it. Just 2 inches. The other way. Make sure everything lines up right. And the good thing about the chalk is it wipes right off the vinyl, and if it's still being a little bit stubborn, you can just take a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a rag and it'll get it off. So what we want to do before we go any further is see how close we are off, if we are off at all. And it looks like I am off just slightly, so what I'm going to do is just take a rag. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to take off the one that I'm not happy with and make sure it's perfectly squared up. So one of the things that I can do to help with this is I can measure how far away from the end. That happens to be 2 inches away, so I'm going to go ahead and put a cheat mark over here, 2 inches down, to know where I should see it stop. And once the original is on there, everything else should become a lot easier. 2 inches. So that's going to be the outside edge. It's lined up there, it's lined up here, and it's lined up here. Now, one of the things I think that I'm going to start doing on all my videos, because instead of having a bunch of dead air, is one of the things about me is I'm a veteran. I'm a combat veteran. I was with the infantry. I was with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and I went from that to going into mental health. And one of the hardest things that I've found coming through all this is getting people to talk about mental health. And people can talk about it anywhere. This is actually one of the things that I do for my own mental health. It's just a project to learn how to do different things. I've just started doing this, but before this, I decided I would teach myself how to sail, and then before that, I decided to teach myself how to ride motorcycles, and I've always known how to work on engines and cars, and a lot of that translated over. But now I'm trying to start to learn how to work on not only myself, but help other people work on themselves. And I think that this might be a good way to reach some people. So I'm just completing my degree for social work, my master's degree, and hopefully here pretty soon I'll complete my licensure and I'll actually get to call myself a social worker. But I'm only going to be working with veterans because I've not had a great experience myself with a VA. And anybody who has had a great experience with them, I'm glad to hear that. I'm not trying to talk negatively about the VA. Just my own personal experience wasn't so great because it's very hard to get someone to understand what someone else has been through if they haven't been through something similar themselves, especially if that person isn't willing to try to empathize. And that was kind of my experience. And that's that among a lot of other things that have happened in my personal life kind of led to that decision. So, like I said, a lot of the stuff here takes a lot of time, and I could fill that time with editing and kind of speed up the process, but I also could spend that time just talking. And that way, the other thing is, you will see me make mistakes, and you will see me learn how to fix those, or how I deal with them, if I actually upload this. So hopefully, we'll be learning together how to do diamond stitch, but also learn a little bit about how we can help each other. And I know a lot of people that will be watching this are not going to be veterans, and that's fine. And your mental health is important too. And one of the biggest things that a lot of people know about but don't really know about is when someone's in a crisis and it's in the middle of the night or any time, or if they don't feel like talking to their friends or family, they can dial it used to be called the emergency suicide hotline, but now they've changed the number, and I believe they've changed what it's called to just the crisis intervention phone line, and it is 988. A lot easier to remember. It's kind of like 911, except it's more for trying to help the person with resources. And if you are not a veteran, you can still dial 988 and they'll be glad to help you. And if you are a veteran, when you dial 988, press 1. I myself, I have used that because I don't believe in telling other people to use something that I have not used myself to see how it works, and that was for me. And I really was kind of impressed with how they operated. They told me also that less than 2% of the people that call that number actually have to have the police intervene in what's going on. Their goal is not to put you in a hospital necessarily unless you need to go to a hospital, but their goal is to help you find the resources and help you schedule appointments with mental health clinicians. And a mental health clinician is not necessarily a psychiatrist, not just that they are a mental health clinician, but they're not just the only one that's out there, or a psychologist. They can be an LPC or a social worker, and there's a lot of different types of social workers out there. And everyone should have the same mission to make sure everyone helps each other. Now, especially in the military community, obviously, that's what I'm going to talk mostly about, because I'm, like I said myself, I am a veteran. And a lot of my brothers, unfortunately, have had a very difficult time. And I had a very difficult time coming back to civilian life as well. But some of my brothers chose to take a more permanent solution to a temporary problem and didn't want to reach out to anybody about it. It was very unfortunate, and it causes a lot of pain. And the other thing is, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, contagious. It was very rarely that we ever lost somebody to suicide that we didn't lose another one really soon after. And I know a lot of that has to do with it bringing it up and them seeing somebody that they saw that was in pain no longer in pain. But what they didn't pay attention to were all the people that were already in pain that got in even more pain. The pain was exacerbated by the loss of their friends. Some of these Marines had families. Some of these Marines thought they didn't have a family, but in reality, if you're a Marine, you know deep down that you do have family. That's all your brothers you served with, or sisters. When I was in the infantry, we didn't have it was not co-ed. It is now, from what I'm hearing, and I'm not here to talk about the politics of that. And I know there's a lot of female Marines that go through some really hardcore stuff, and they're every bit as, in my opinion, every bit as much as a Marine as I am. Like they say, once a Marine, always Marine. And I've actually ran into several other people going through school to be a social worker that are Marines, and almost every single one of them was female. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna be the best fit for you if you're an infantry guy that has went through some infantry type stuff back in the mid to early 2000s, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not either, because I see a social worker, it's my own personal social worker, and she's not even military. She's one of the best social workers I could possibly ask for, and it's helped quite a bit. It kind of points out, she kind of points out a lot of things that I'm doing in my life that I could think differently about. And the biggest thing that she's taught me as a mentor also is that it's not her job to tell me what to do next. You cannot have an agenda. So if you're talking to a mental health professional, they seem to have an agenda, and they're telling you you need to do this or you need to do that. It's time to find a new social worker, or a new psychiatrist, psychologist, whoever you're seeing, clinician of any kind. Because what our job is to help you think about what is already in your head. An analogy that I like to use is if you take, since I'm a construction and mechanic background, I've fought a lot with extension cords. And my analogy for mental health and extension cords and how a good therapist works is think of that extension cord. You got, let's say, 10 of them, and you're in a hurry leaving your construction site. Let's say that's the trauma. You take those extension cords and you throw them all into the bucket. You don't have time to wrap them up. What happens to those cords? In my experience, those cords get tangled up and they become a mess. And they're still the same 10 extension cords, and there's nothing wrong with them. They all work just fine, but you can't access them. Not easily. It's a struggle and you have to pull through it. It's like mental health. Sometimes it's a struggle and you need help pulling through it. So your job of your mental health professional is simply to help you dump that bucket out, untangle those cords, straighten them out, put them back the right way, and you still end up with the same things that were there. Their job is not to cut the cords and buy you new ones. Their job is not to completely throw things out or try to add a different kind or a better model. It's just to help you fix what you already have and what you already know. So I hope that helps. And now we can see a pretty good diamond pattern. Moving on. So what I'm gonna do, just try not to spit all over this, but I'm gonna blow it off. Now I have this backer, and what I've done before is I used one layer. This is 1/4 inch. I bought this at Walmart. It has a layer on both sides of some stitching. I don't know how well the camera can pick that up, but that stitching is really important, because if you use foam without that, the needle and thread will cut straight through it, and then it won't do this. This was my first piece that I tried to do this on my practice piece, and it made a pretty decent looking diamond pattern. But these were 1 inch by 1 inch, and I wanted to actually have a little bit more definition on this next one. I'm hoping to put this on my Crossroads or maybe my Hammer. I'm a Victory Motorcycles kind of guy. I'm 6'8", and Victory made a bike for a really tall guy, and I like that. I have nothing against Harley or Indian. I think I really like all motorcycles, and I think for some people, including myself, motorcycles are some of the best forms of mental health there is. Unless you've never ridden a motorcycle and you try it and it freaks you out, then it's not good mental health, so don't do that. So I'm gonna kind of square this up. I know I should be using a square around that, but that's pretty good. So I don't have as much of this as I do of this pattern here, and I knew that when I was starting. So what I was gonna do is just fold this over, and it looks like I have enough to do the seat of my Hammer. And it's a solo seat, so my Crossroads has a much larger seat. And I'm no mathematician, that's why that's one of the reasons I went into social work, is you don't gotta be super smart. So 1/4 inch plus 1/4 inch is 1/2 inch, according to that ruler there. So anyway, we're gonna go with that. I'm gonna fold this in half, and I'm gonna cut it. I'll try to get it as squared up as possible. Try not to mess it up. The edges I'm not too worried about, especially for this solo seat, because I'm just going to trim everything and roll the seam over. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a cord yet. I might try that, but it may be just a bit advanced for me. And we're going to need to put some glue on this. So I have this bag, this plastic bag, Lay that on the floor. And this glue I also got, it's a Scotch brand permanent spray adhesive, Super 77. It says it dries quickly and colorless and fine mist spray, works really well. Worked great on this. I mean, and it's instant too, it stuck it right away. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first start by gluing these two together. So I'm gonna take this first one, set it down, try not to get this all over my floor. I'm gonna put a pretty generous layer. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it bunch up a little bit. It says to spray both sides. So now that I got this side sprayed, make sure it's not set the wrong side down, but set it over there. Spray this side next. Alright, sticky side, and this is the side that I just cut over there, so I know kind of which direction that goes. Whoa, actually this side's not supposed to cut. Alright. So I'm gonna try to gently place it down, bend it, line it up the best I can. This is some really good sticky stuff. Press it together, and that is that, as far as that goes. Now I'm going to take this before I spray any more sticky to it, and I'm going to decide where I'm going to put this. So what we want to do is, first off, what I learned on this last one, as you can see, can you zoom the camera in on that? The corners here. You see how that little triangle there, a little bit bigger triangle, a little bit bigger triangle, a little bigger triangle, almost half a triangle. I want to try to avoid that this time. So what we're going to do, and this part isn't super crazy important, but we're going to make sure that when you do this, you line it up just like I did. So we know that the corners are all exactly the same. All these triangles are the same size everywhere and on both sides. So this one, if we notice, this side has little triangles, this side doesn't. It ends exactly right there. So when we come through, we'll know when we're sewing that we're going to stop right here. So we'll come off that side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'm going to cut this here. And it's okay to cut it a little bit longer. It's always better to have more than not enough, because we're going to end up cutting the excess off anyway. But at least the little diamonds give you an idea where to cut, so you know if you're going in a straight line. And we'll use this for another piece, like if we're going to do the back side of, and I still may end up using this on my Crossroads, because it's got obviously a passenger seat on the Crossroads, and this gives me enough to where I can really move it around. I'll just have to get some more foam for that. So now I'm going to take this back over here. It's time to once again spray both sides I'm gonna spray the foam first. And one of the things that I have found that has helped me profoundly, going back to the mental health subject here. Let's see, where's the sticky side at? Let's go ahead and move this around to this side. Is finding a way to reach out to some of my buddies that served with. We don't have to talk about the traumas. We don't have to talk about the horrible things that happen. But it is important we talk. And I think that is part of the reason that so many people have a hard time with it. They just lose touch, we grow apart. When we get out, we just grow apart. Some people get out and they become successful right off the bat, and other people, well, they take just a little bit longer. It's not to say that they're not going to become successful. So if you find yourself not exactly where you want to be at the moment, just realize that maybe you just need to come out and talk to your brothers and see where they started, where they are. Just have good conversations with them. Just pay attention, and you might learn something. So when we lay this down, this is the part that I really wish that there was a better way for me to do this that didn't involve brushing the chalk off, because before, one of the things that I learned is that happens real easy. So I'm going to try something new. I'm going to take a can, I'm going to start at one end, I'm going to roll it. Yeah, it's staying on there this time. Okay, I'm not brushing it off. Roll the air bubbles out and let it get a good, nice flat adhesion to what we're doing here. And now we come back to our table and get you a good dog. If you can, get you a good dog. Sometimes a dog is one of the easiest people to talk to because they can't be too judgmental and they can't talk back to you when you really need to be the one to talk to you. I don't necessarily mean you need to get a giant horse like that one, but and I also recommend keeping scraps of this foam left over and practicing on a piece like this is sticky here. I'm gonna have to run this through my machine to make sure my tension's correct. So the sticky side, I'm gonna take a piece of extra that I have somewhere. Let me grab a piece real quick. Take a piece that you have extra. Let's go ahead and make an approximation. Let's take the not sticky side and put it down and get an idea about how much to cut this. And really all we're doing here with this is we're making sure that the tension is set up correctly. There's really no wait time to stick this to this. It likes to almost immediately adhere to it. You may want to wait just a few minutes before you start cranking away on your machine, because I don't know that if it's going to gum up that needle or not. The other thing is making sure you start out with a good bobbin. But this is gonna be my first video of this section. We've got our diamonds traced out. We've got it glued to the foam. And we'll go back and trim this side off. And on the next video, we're gonna use this test piece and find out where we're at. If we like it, then we're gonna start stitching. Hope you have a good day. Remember, if you're having any issues, reach out to a friend, call a mental health agency that will work with you. If you can't afford that, I understand, but call 988 and they can help you find someone that you can't afford. With that being said, stay good, have a good time, and Semper Fi.